It's amazing how some of the biggest changes we go through, they often start with these like really jarring moments.
Yeah, for sure.
Take James Clear, for instance, gets whacked in the face with a baseball bat.
Oh, wow.
Broken nose, facial fractures, eyes all messed up, even slipped into a coma for a while. And then when he finally makes it back to the field, it wasn't exactly a triumphant, movie scene you can imagine, feeling like a shell of himself, so far from where he wanted to be.
It's really interesting, though, when you think about his whole story,
Yeah.
that his comeback and all the success he's had since, it wasn't like this one big jump, right?
Right.
It was more about all those small, almost invisible wins along the way, those little breakthroughs.
Those tiny breakthroughs. I love that phrase.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today with you. It's this whole idea that real lasting change comes from consistently stacking these seemingly insignificant actions on top of each other.
Totally. And we've been digging deep into excerpts from James Clear's Atomic Habits to do just that. So our mission for you today is to pull out the most essential principles of habit formation from that and present them in a way you can actually use right away. We want you to walk away with practical tools so you can start building better habits without feeling like you're drowning in information.
Exactly. So what are we going to cover? Well, first off, we're going to break down the fundamental structure of habits, specifically that four-step pattern Clear lays out: cue, craving, response, reward. Then we'll explore the unexpected power of those small, incremental gains, those tiny hinges that swing big doors over time.
That's true.
We'll also look at the crucial role your identity plays in shaping your habits and dive into practical strategies for making good habits stick by making them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. And of course, we'll touch on those inevitable plateaus we all hit on this journey and how to push through them.
Love it. Okay, let's jump right in with something that might sound a bit technical at first, but stick with me because it's incredibly powerful. The magic of small habits and how they compound. Clear talks about habits as the compound interest of self-improvement.
Right. Yeah.
It's not about these massive overnight transformations. It's the tiny, consistent actions that build on each other over time.
Absolutely.
It's like that old saying, little by little, a little becomes a lot, right? Think about how consistently putting a little aside in your retirement fund can lead to huge returns over decades. That same exponential growth applies to our personal development, too. Even a tiny improvement each day, when you keep it up, creates a powerful trajectory for you.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Think about it this way. Your financial habits, those little daily decisions about spending and saving, they ultimately determine your net worth, right?
Right.
Your eating habits, those seemingly small choices you make at each meal, well, they add up to your weight and your health. And your learning habits, that daily reading or studying, it gradually builds your knowledge and expertise over time. Like Clear says, and this is important to remember, you get what you repeat. And it's not about instant transformation, which is something a lot of people miss.
Yeah, totally. It's about playing the long game, isn't it?
Totally.
He emphasizes how these small gains or losses, even just 1% better or worse each day, they compound dramatically over 10 or 20 years.
Huge difference.
Huge difference. Saving a little each month, consistently showing up at the gym, reading a few pages every day, these small battles, as he calls them, they're quietly shaping your future self. It's so easy to dismiss these tiny actions as insignificant in the moment. What difference does reading one page make? But it's the consistency that's key.
Absolutely. And this is where the valley of disappointment comes in. Clear talks about how in those early stages of building a habit, progress often feels so slow.
Yeah.
You expect things to move in a straight line upwards, but the reality is those first days, weeks, even months, you can feel like you're putting in so much effort and not seeing any real results. It's really discouraging for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. It's like trying to heat up an ice cube that's like at 25 degrees. You apply the heat, you're doing the work, but for a while, nothing seems to happen.
Exactly.
So tempting, isn't it, to think, oh, this is all a waste of time.
You just want to give up. But the important thing Clear points out here is that the work isn't wasted. It's being stored, like that ice slowly inching towards melting point. He calls this the plateau of latent potential. You know that overnight success everyone sees? Well, that's often just the culmination of all that prior effort finally reaching a tipping point, like that ice finally hitting 32 degrees and melting. So it's about trusting the process, even when you don't see immediate results.
Trust the process. I love that. And that leads us to another key distinction Clear makes that really shifted my perspective. Focusing on systems versus just setting goals.
Yeah, this is a big one. What's really fascinating here is his argument that the results we see are just a lagging indicator of the systems we have in place.
Interesting.
So if you want lasting improvement in any area of your life, you need to shift your focus away from just those outcomes, the goals themselves, and start focusing on fixing the underlying processes, the inputs that are driving those results. Think about it. If you're constantly focused on losing weight, but your eating habits stay the same, you're unlikely to see any real sustainable change.
It's like trying to run a marathon with no training.
Exactly. And Clear criticizes this goals-first mentality because he says it can actually hold us back from being happy. You're always putting off happiness until you hit that next milestone. Once I achieve this, then I'll be happy. But that creates this constant either-or conflict in your mind.
Yeah, always chasing something in the future instead of finding joy in the present.
Exactly. You're never really satisfied. And this is where the idea of identity-based habits comes in. This is a really powerful concept.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Well, Clearup argues that our behaviors are usually a reflection of our identity, whether we realize it or not. The actions we take show the type of person we believe we are. So, someone who consistently goes to the gym, they probably see themselves as a fit person.
Makes sense.
He gives this great example, and I think it really illustrates the point. People who identified as being a voter were way more likely to actually vote than those who just said, voting is something I want to do. It's a subtle but important difference in how you view yourself. When you make a habit part of your identity, I am a runner, I am a writer, I am a healthy eater, those behaviors become easier. It's not about forcing yourself anymore. It's about acting in alignment with who you believe you are.
It's almost like you're giving yourself permission to do it because it's who you are.
Exactly. And this creates a really positive feedback loop, right? Your habits shape your identity, and then your identity strengthens those habits. So the focus shifts from achieving a specific outcome to becoming a certain type of person.
That's powerful.
And Clear calls this identity change the North Star of habit change.
I love that.
It's about asking yourself, who do I want to become? And then letting that guide your daily actions. Now, let's get into the practical side of things, the nitty-gritty of Clear's framework, the 4 laws of behavior change.
Yes. This is where the rubber meets the road. So the first law is make it obvious, and this ties directly into the cue stage of a habit. Clear explains that cues trigger your brain to start a behavior because they predict a reward.
Right. In the beginning, for our ancestors, these cues were super basic, linked to things like finding food or water. But now, we're mostly responding to cues that predict secondary rewards like money, status, approval. Our minds are always scanning for these triggers, often without us even knowing it.
It's happening in the background. So how can we make those good habit cues more obvious in our own lives?
Well, Clear suggests a couple of really effective techniques. One is the habits scorecard. It's super simple. Just list out all your daily habits, both the good and the bad. Become more aware of them. It's about bringing those unconscious routines into the light so you can analyze them.
Shine a light on them.
Exactly. He also talks about this thing called pointing and calling, which he observed in the Japanese railway system. The conductors physically point at what they're doing and say it out loud. This really simple act drastically reduces errors and increases awareness.
Interesting.
You can do the same thing in your own life by verbalizing your actions, especially when you're trying to build a new habit or break an old one. It forces you to pay attention.
Yeah, be present. Another key strategy, and one you can use right away, is setting implementation intentions. This is where you make specific plans. I will behavior at time and location. So instead of just vaguely thinking I should exercise more, you'd say, I will go for a 30-minute walk at 7 a.m. in the park.
I love that. It takes away all the vagueness.
Yeah.
And then there's habit stacking. This is a really smart way to build new habits by linking them to existing ones.
It's like piggybacking on your existing routine.
Right, exactly. The formula is, after I current habit, I will know meos, new habit. You can brainstorm a list of your daily habits, things like brushing your teeth, making coffee, and then find natural points in that sequence to insert the new habit. For example, after I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth. Start small. That's the key.
Small and consistent.
Yes.
Okay, so that's make it obvious. And then Clear really emphasizes environment design. He quotes Kurt Lewin's equation. Behavior is a function of the person in their environment. BFDFEE. It reminds us that our surroundings shape us.
For sure. To make good habits easier, you need to design your environment to support them. Put your workout clothes where you'll see them first thing in the morning. Keep healthy snacks visible and less healthy ones out of sight.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. To break bad habits, reduce exposure to those cues. Trying to cut down on screen time. Keep your phone in another room. Changing your environment can be surprisingly effective for building new habits and breaking old ones. He even suggests redefining spaces, the one space, one use idea. So your bedroom is just for sleeping. Your desk is just for working. It helps create clearer mental associations.
Makes sense. All right, so that was make it obvious. The second law is make it attractive, and this is all about the craving stage. Why do we actually want to do these habits?
Dopamine. It's not just released when we experience pleasure, but also in anticipation of it. So habits get linked to increased dopamine, making them feel good even before we do them.
So we're chasing that dopamine hit, and Claire talks about how social norms influence what we find attractive. We're social creatures, we want to fit in, get approval from our peers. So behaviors become more attractive when they align with our social circles.
Right. We tend to imitate the habits of three groups. The close ones, family and friends. The many, our broader social group. And the powerful, those with status. Understanding this can help us make good habits more appealing.
So surround yourself with people who embody the habits you want to build.
Exactly. Find groups where those habits are the norm.
That's a great tip. He also talks about reframing cravings. Instead of viewing a challenging part of a habit negatively, try associating positive feelings with it.
Yeah, like if you're trying to meditate and find yourself getting distracted, instead of getting frustrated, reframe it as a chance to practice bringing your attention back to your breath. It's about shifting your perspective.
Love it. All right, moving on to the third law, make it easy. This focuses on the response stage of a habit.
Right. Claire talks about reducing friction. He makes a distinction between being in motion and taking action. Motion is all the planning, researching, learning we do about a habit.
It's like preparing to do something without actually doing it.
Exactly. And while those things can be helpful, they don't produce results.
Yeah.
Action is the actual doing, the thing that moves the needle. We often get stuck in motion because it feels like progress without the risk of failure.
Because it feels safe.
Exactly. He also stresses that habits form based on frequency, not necessarily time. It's about how many times you do it, especially in the beginning, not how long each session is. So make the habit easy. Design your environment so that good habit is the path of least resistance.
Make it the default option.
He introduces this concept of decisive moments, those little choices we make throughout the day that shape our future options.
Like choosing to lay out your workout clothes the night before.
Exactly. It makes choosing exercise in the morning easier. And then there's the 2-minute rule. This is great for overcoming inertia when starting something new.
So break it down into tiny, manageable chunks.
Exactly. Make it so easy it takes less than 2 minutes. Read before bed becomes read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. It's about creating a gateway habit that leads you down a more productive path.
And it's always better to do a little than nothing at all, right?
Absolutely. Consistency is key.
Finally, we have the fourth law. Make it satisfying. This is all about the reward stage.
Right. Our brains prioritize immediate gratification. And this is a challenge because the negative consequences of bad habits often come later, while the rewards are instant. Smoking, for example, might provide immediate stress relief, even though the long-term effects are awful.
So we need to find ways to make good habits rewarding in the short term, too.
Exactly. Clear suggests using immediate reinforcement. Give yourself a small reward right after doing a good habit. Conversely, you can add a bit of pain for bad habits. Like a couple wants to eat out less and save for a trip, so every time they skip takeout, they transfer that money to their trip fund. It provides instant positive feedback.
I love that. And these rewards should align with the identity you're trying to build, right?
Right. If you're trying to be healthier, reward a workout with a massage, not a sugary treat.
Makes sense. Habit tracking is another powerful tool. Simply keeping track of your habits provides visual proof of your progress, which can be super motivating.
Totally. It's its own reward, too. Crossing things off a list releases dopamine.
It feels good to see that progress. And finally, Clear discusses accountability partners and habit contracts. Making your goals public and setting consequences for not following through increases the pain of bad habits.
It's about adding a layer of social pressure. You're accountable to someone else, not just yourself.
That's a great way to stay on track. Now, Clear also gets into some more advanced tactics for maximizing your chances of success. One interesting point is about choosing the right field of competition, focusing on habits that align with your natural strengths.
It's about playing a game that favors your talents. While genes don't dictate our destiny, they do give us areas where we have a natural advantage. Habits that align with those talents are more enjoyable and more likely to stick.
So play to your strengths. He also talks about the Goldilocks rule. We experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right at the edge of our abilities, about 4% beyond what we can comfortably do.
It's that sweet spot of challenge where you're not bored but not overwhelmed either.
The perfect balance. And then there's mastering boredom. Clear says successful people aren't necessarily more motivated. They've just learned to show up even when they don't feel like it.
Professionals stick to the schedule, while amateurs let their feelings dictate their actions.
Fall in love with boredom, he says. He also touches on the importance of continuous improvement and the concept of loose coupling, making your habits flexible so they can adapt to changing circumstances.
Because life happens, and we need to be able to adjust. In his final reflections, Clear brings it all back to identity change as the ultimate driving force. He says happiness equals liking minus wanting. True satisfaction comes after you've taken action, not before.
So take action and the satisfaction will follow. He also reminds us that our actions reveal our true motivation.
They speak louder than words.
So, just to recap the key takeaways for you from our deep dive. Start small. Focus on those 1% improvements that compound over time. Prioritize building systems over fixating on goals. Understand and apply the 4 laws of behavior change. Make your desired habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. And, most importantly, align your habits with the person you want to become and find ways to make the process enjoyable so you can stick with it long term.
And here's a thought to leave you with. What small habit, if you started consistently today, would have the biggest positive impact on your life a year from now?
What one tiny action can you take right now to make that habit obvious and easy to start?
We encourage you to reflect on these ideas and pick 1 or 2 things you can realistically implement today.
If you found this deep dive valuable and want to explore further, we highly recommend checking out James Clear's full work and other resources on habit formation.
Remember, building better habits is a journey of small wins.
Every tiny habit you build contributes to the bigger picture of who you're becoming.
Keep building.
Keep growing.
Until next time.
See you then.